Mic check. 1 2 1 2. All right. Hell yeah, we're finally live. Okay. Oh, whoops. That's intermission. Let's swap that up here. All right. Okay. Nice. We're in the mix. Let's get this background music. All right. Getting back into the mood of things. Also, we got a bunch of new uh, channel redeems. Whoops. Had my PS5 controller shit the bed. I have someone delivering oh, there we go. Yeah, we had a delivery come in here. Just got myself some extra fuel, some cokes, and got myself a little something just to give me some fuel while we finish this theory. I'm gonna open up CapCut here in a sec and start getting to work. Because yesterday, luckily, we finished the script for um for the video, which I'm super excited about. And once we get this script, basically putting pen to paper, um, hopefully things jive well. I may have to grab a couple other clips during the stream, but that's totally fine. There's no problem with that whatsoever. All right, let's get to work. Oh, hang on, my YouTube chat is disabled for some reason. I gotta fix that. All right, we got it fixed. And we got cap cut. Now that was the original video there. All right. So, what do we got here so far? We got my script. This was ChatGPT stuff. This was my actual finished script here. We put in a lot of work into this yesterday. Very unorganized, but we'll get better at that. I'm not stressing that too hard. Got ChatGPT over here. Let's see. Okay. So, how did we finish up yesterday? ChatGPT actually cooked with a couple ideas. Really good ideas. In terms of like wording and whatnot. I was really happy about it. But I want to do a recap. So, before we do the recap, I'm going to pause that real quick.
Where'd they hide?
And Captain Cuba had a video that I wanted to watch again. It's not this one. It's not that one. Okay, yeah. I wanted to watch this. And this was really, really cool. Long story short, in this video, a Reddit fan by the name of Morse the Code, he discovered in the hidden files of God of War Ragnarok a hidden cutscene with Atreus, which is super, super cool. So just to get back into like that's that mental state of like theory crafting and stuff, I definitely want to watch this. So
This week just keeps getting crazier and crazier for the God of War community. Not only did we get a Shadow Drop new game in this series, but also the
I'm gonna go grab this stuff that just came in too. So that's why I'm watching the video real quick.
announcement that the God of War Greek trilogy was being remade entirely. And I'm here to tell you that, as huge as both of these things are, this video isn't about them. This video concerns something much, much bigger. You know Morse, right? Well, Morse has once again made a discovery in God of War Ragnarok that might shed some light on God of War's biggest mystery, the higher plane of existence. Essentially, Morse has found lines of dialogues for a cutscene that was originally planned to be played sometime during the post-game of God of War Ragnarok. The scene in question starts with Atreus saying, "Wake up, I think we're close. Hey, you insisted on coming along. Come on, let's have a look. I hope you're right. Sounds like we found it." Then another character, whose name is simply Mao, replies to Atreus with, "Mao?" And then he also says, "Mao." The scene that cuts to a mysterious robed figure who says in Greek, "The white snake will eat you." Then the same robed figure says, "One failed us, one rejected us." And here's the really interesting part, because there's one more character in this scene, Athena, and she simply says, "We have a problem." So I understand that this is a lot to take in at first, so let me break down what I think is happening in this scene. The whole vibe of this scene is very similar to those MCU's post-credit scenes where you get a glimpse of what's coming in the future. Now, the scene in question starts with Atreus traveling somewhere in Egypt. We can deduce it's somewhere in Egypt because the character he's talking to is named Mao, which is the cat form the sun god Ra takes in Egyptian mythology. It's actually the form he takes to defeat the chaos serpent Apep, which makes sense why then the robed figure says, "The white snake will eat you." Now, who is this robed figure? At the moment there are two possible theories. Number one, the robed figure is Athena, who begins the scene with her back to the camera, and it's not until the camera turns that it gets revealed that it was Athena all along. This could explain why the robed figure is speaking Greek the first time. The other theory is that the robed woman is an entirely different character, which explains why Athena says, "We have a problem." There are two characters in the scene, so it makes sense to say "we." At the moment, I don't really have a preference towards any of the theories, but if I had a gun to my head, I would say that I prefer the latter, because we know that from God of War 2018, there is a mysterious hooded woman that's responsible for bringing Kratos to Scandinavia. And there was also this weird concept art from God of War Ragnarok that also shows a hooded woman. Maybe all of these characters are the same. But who this character is at the moment, we're really not going to know. The important thing is what this character says. "One failed us, one rejected us." This seems to be a reference to both Odin and Atreus. Odin is the one who failed to collect all the mask pieces, and Atreus is the one who rejected the mask in the rift. Clearly this scene was setting up a much larger story for what we in the community have been calling the higher plane of existence. And it seems that it was very important for Athena and these robe characters that either Odin or Atreus would look through the rift. What they were planning with that, we really don't know at the moment. But it seems like we're finally going to learn more about the higher plane of existence in the Atreus game. Also, it seems like Atreus is the one who's going to be going to Egypt, not Kratos. Now, to be honest, I really don't know why this cutscene was cut from the game. A big complaint people had about God of War Ragnarok's story is that it felt like the mask in the Rift plotline didn't really go anywhere. Having a scene like this at the end would have served as another who blew the horn moment in God of War Ragnarok, one that we would still be making theories about. But hey, at least there's a member in the community who loves decoding encrypted files to find all the juicy bits. Now, I understand that this topic deserves more attention, and this was a really short video, but believe it or not, I still have not finished God of War Sons of Sparta yet, so after I'm done editing this thing, I gotta get back to that beast. So if you have any questions about how Morse got this information, I'm sure you'll find them in the comments section. And of course, while you're talking to him, make sure you tell him thanks for this huge discovery. This dude just keeps getting better at just finding things in these games, man. But that's gonna be all for today, guys. I might make another video about this in the future, but in the meantime, this will have to do. Of course, I want to give a big thanks to all of my members who right now I don't have on the screen because again, I gotta get back to playing God of War Sons of Sparta, so thank you regardless though. And I also want to thank everyone who likes and shares my videos. It may not seem like much, but trust me, it really does help. And with that said, thanks for watching. And remember, go forth in the name of Olympus.
Hello everyone,
Yeah.
it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always,
Absolutely
welcome back to
awesome.
yet another God of War video on the channel.
Awesome
Because still
frickin'
during
discovery
last week's huge
by Morse. Like absolute fucking uh mic drop from him when he discovered that. But that being said, I'm definitely in the mood now. So let's dive deep into what we have. I'm gonna do a quick review of what I wrote yesterday. And see if I have any issues with its flow. You can see here, man, I have so much stuff here. Don't do anything. Just organize the text so I can reread. It's bro, it did the same thing. Alright, I'm just gonna read the text because ChatGPT is not reliable. All right, video format. Questions we want answered. What is Faye's past? How and why did Faye die? How does she know about the masks? Who are Faye's parents? Why was Odin trapped in Faye's marbles? Why did Faye and Thor actually fight? Vanaheim crater. And why is Fjorgen's little marker scarily similar to Faye's funeral and description? I don't think we can answer all of these questions in one video, but I think we can theorize about a few of them. Intro. Who I am, why I'm making this. Why Theorycraft? Corey Ballerlog, interview, Beyond. Okay, talking about all the secrets. Alright, we know about that. Lore marker, right to Fjord. Claim. In my opinion, This is one of the most important. A little loud. This is one of the most important lore markers in the modern God of War games. Here we bear witness to the funeral rites of Fjorgen of the Jotnar, goddess of the earth and trees. For her beauty she was seduced, for her love she was betrayed, and for her gift of life, her life was claimed. To the summit and across the bridge she shall be born, where nevermore the thunder may find her. Now let's break this down based on what we know so far. We get this lore marker in God of War 2018, and even then, the content of Funeral Rite was eerily similar to what we knew about Faye back then. Specifically, the to the summit and across the bridge she shall be born, where nevermore the thunder, aka Thor, at least we can assume this by the thunder's capitalized, may find her. Yeah, this is a little wordy here, so we'd have to fix that. But we get this lore marker in God of War 2018, and even then, the content of Funeral Rite was eerily similar to what we knew about Faye back then. Faye was dead. So, with that being said, to understand this lore marker, we should first try to understand what we know about Fjorgen first, and I can't think of anyone better than Mimir to do this for us. And then we play the Mimir clips from 2018 and Ragnarok. So, what did we learn? We learned that Fjorgen was one of Odin's great loves, and that after she passed away, Odin was never the same afterwards. In fact, after she passed away, we learned in 2018 that Mimir pushed to have Odin marry Freya. And the reason for this is based off of what Mimir says. And then we show the clip from 2018. So for this, I need a cue 2018. Just the mention of Fjord. Because he does go on a tangent. That lore marker is a little bit more complex. He starts talking about Freya's marriage and stuff. Alright. So in Odin's bluster, this means acting or speaking in a loud, aggressive, or boastful way, often to hide weakness or make empty threats. He was in pain during this war with the Vanir, most likely due to Fjorgen's passing. We all know what Odin's true motivation was in the end, the mask and the answer to life after death for gods, like him. Very typical for Mimir, he tried to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, by offering marriage with Freya so that he can end the war and hopefully put an end to Odin's grief, even though, as Mimir mentioned, it seemed good for a time. So much so that Freya ended up trusting him and sharing her magic with him. It ended badly, as we know, because we all know that Odin was resourcefully subversive, and she ended up being a means to an end. Now that we have all the quote-unquote verifiable evidence, at least most of it, out of the way, let's take a trip down the rabbit hole, shall we? Here we bear witness to the funeral rites of Fjorgen of the Jotnar, goddess of the earth and trees. And maybe I should make a clip where I show this, but I put this in bolds and underline it. Back in 2018, we knew that Fjorgen was not just a giant. Back in 2018, we knew that Fjorgen was not just a giant, she was a goddess as well. A goddess of the earth and trees. So, in sum, Fjorgen was half god, half giant. In the God of War universe, it's been shown to us that some, if not all god powers, seem to be hereditary or genetic in nature. Instantly, I think of Thor and his children. All of Thor's children seem to have genetically inherited their Thor-like powers, Magni, Modi, and even Thrud, exhibiting super strength and lightning powers. Atreus' god powers, at least half of them, are akin to Kratos' Spartan Rage, which is not only mechanically similar from a gameplay standpoint, but his big animal transformations are emotionally triggered, at least at first, the wolf and bear forms. Now, I know people will start referencing the Greek pantheons, the Greek pantheon gods, and Balder, even though his invulnerability was spell based. I don't have time to address that, just that the magic is tied to the earth, as Freya and Atreus said in God of War Ragnarok. Fjorgyn was goddess of the earth and trees, and Odin, well, we know that in the end, he relied on a lot of magic to amplify his godhood. But in our final fight with Odin in Ragnarok, you can see that Odin is a force of nature, leveraging elemental energy to fight. This could explain his ability to kill Ymir long ago, and why Thor became the god of thunder in the God of War universe when he was born. However, this theory is about Fjorgyn and Faye, and I can't help but notice strange similarities. Faye was a giant, and with that comes strange giant magic that we still don't fully understand, which may be another reason outside of the mask that caused Odin's infatuation with giant kind. Faye was a giant, and with that comes strange giant magic. Uh, and with that comes strange giant magic that we still don't fully understand, which may be another reason outside of the masks that caused Odin's infatuation with giant kind. She was confirmed to be a god in the Laufey trailer, which, to be honest, I think is being super slept on by the God of War theory crafting community. I'm thinking right now. Fjorgyn was the goddess of the earth and trees, and Odin, well, we know that in. Um, is that because I start talking about Thor? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that'll make more sense because I just start going on a tangent, assuming people know what I'm talking about. But that's It's not a good idea. Okay. Now, I know people will start referencing the Greek pantheons, gods, and Balder, even though his invulnerability was spell-based. I don't have time to address that, just that the magic is tied to the earth, as Freya and Atreus said in God of War Ragnarok. Now, Fjorgyn was goddess of the earth and trees, and Odin, well, we know that in the end, he relied on a lot of magic to amplify his godhood. But in our final fight with Odin in Ragnarok, you can see that Odin is a force of nature, leveraging elemental energy to fight. Um, show background clip of final fight with Odin. This could explain his ability to kill Ymir long ago, and why Thor became the god of thunder in the God of War universe when he was born. However, this theory is about Fjorgyn and Faye, and I can't help but notice strange similarities. Faye was a giant, and with that comes strange giant magic that we still don't fully understand. This may be another reason outside of the masks that caused Odin's infatuation with giant kind. She was confirmed to be a god. Between the two. However, thanks. Still, this theory is about. Still, this theory is about Fjorgyn and Faye. However, we got a massive lore dump. Lore nugget in the God of War Laufey trailer. That is completely being slept on by in my opinion. Q Bexy Faye Goblin Plus. She was confirmed to be a god in the Laufey trailer, which, to be honest, okay. Let's just end it there. She was confirmed to be a god in the Laufey trailer, which, to be honest, I think is being slept on by the God of War Theorycrafting community. This wording can be fixed. All right. She had the power to create a protective stave around the wildwoods to protect her family from the Norse pantheon. From the entire Norse pantheon. However, don't you think it's coincidental she required trees and earth in order to make that stave, marking the trees with a special ritual spell in order to do so. Um, we can even see her uttering something when she marks a tree with her special gold paint in a Ragnarok vision from Kratos. Show the clip. Those specific trees were also used for her pyre that eventually led her to the Everyone. Besides that, she marks the earth throughout the entire path that Kratos and Atreus take for 2 full games worth of adventure. This can be argued to be giant stuff, but you have to admit, it's coincidental and noteworthy. I mean, come on. The giants could tell the future. The giants had the gift of foresight. But to have that to have such a um and but most giant prophecies came in the form of murals where they painted the future with broad strokes. Faye's foresight was incredibly detailed. She marked every single rock, nook, and cranny that Kratos and Atreus walk, run, jump, and climb over throughout 2 entire games. You gotta admit, it's special. Um, let's take another look at the rest of the lore marker. For her beauty she was seduced, for her love she was betrayed, and for her gift of life her life was claimed. To the summit and across the bridge she shall be borne, where never more the thunder may find her. The top portion of this, uh, the top portion of this remainder of the lore marker definitely pertains to Fjorgen. We'll attempt to break that down in a bit, but to continue talking about Faye and Fjorgen in the same breath, we have to break down the last portion. To the summit and across the bridge she shall be borne, where never more the thunder may find her. In the last 8 years, I still haven't encountered anyone that's deterred me from thinking this doesn't correlate Faye to Fjorgen. We cannot ignore this. To the summit, to the summit and across the bridge he shall be borne. Guys, in 2018, we literally take Faye's ashes through the same path. It's important to note that, it's important to note to those that don't know, but born means to be carried or transported. Faye's ashes were taken across a bridge to the summit, aka the highest peak in all the realms. It literally can't get any more black and white than that. Now the rest of the context. For her beauty she was seduced, for her love she was betrayed, and for her gift of life, her life was claimed. For her beauty she was seduced. No idea got me on that one. Maybe Odin seduced her. Who knows? For her love she was betrayed. This could definitely refer to Odin and his love for her. Even though, according to Mimir, this time it seemed like it was actually genuine. But Odin betrayed her somehow when he found out. Through his, this could have been because, through his pursuit of knowledge about the rift, the masks, and the higher plane. Um, I'm getting confused by my parentheses here. This could definitely refer to Odin and his love for her. But Odin betrayed her somehow when he found out. But Odin betrayed her somehow when he found out that the giants had some sort of information about the masks and its related magics. This could definitely refer to Odin and his love for her. Even though, according to Mimir, this time it seemed like it was actually genuine. But Odin betrayed her somehow when he found out. And when he found out, that was, through his pursuit of knowledge about the rift, the mask, the higher plane. Um, he found out that the giants had some sort of information about the masks and its related magics. You know, this could, this is basically the reason why she was betrayed. And for her gift of life, her life was claimed. This one is the tricky one that has various implications. Her gift of life, given she was mother to Thor, could could relate to childbirth. Which, if this was the case and she did die giving birth to Thor, it could absolutely explain why Thor was not only treated like absolute dog water by a grieving husband and father that blamed his son for his beloved wife's death, but it would also explain why Thor hated the giants. Because knowing Odin, he would have poisoned Thor's mind from infancy, saying that the giants were the reason why his mother died, and why he later considered them to be a blight to the Nine Realms, and he reveled in their deaths. Maybe I should just insert the clip here instead of reading. However, this could also be attacked from the angle that Thor knew his mother died because of him. However, this could also be attacked from the angle that Thor knew his mother died because of him. Odin blamed him for it, making sure Odin knew Thor was the reason why she died, and then used that. Let me read this again because I'm fucking losing myself. And if I'm losing myself, that means other people lose themselves while I'm explaining this. However, this could also be attacked from the angle that Thor knew his mother died because of him. I wrote this so wrong. However, this could also be attacked from the angle that Thor knew his mother died. Like Thor knew that his mother died because of because of Thor. And then Odin like was you know, constantly blamed him for it. And this was making sure that Thor was the reason Odin knew Thor was the reason why Fjorgen died. And then Odin used that um and then Odin used that hatred at and personal guilt that Thor had as fuel to point Thor, like the destroyer weapon that he was, in the direction of any problem he had. Even with all of this, even even with all of this, even with all of this speculation, one must keep in mind that Mimir states in God of War Ragnarok that the circumstances of her death were murky at best. So, this is all food for thought. With that being said, this is where the Vanaheim crater becomes interesting, in my opinion. We still don't know the exact reason why Faye fought Thor. We were told that Thor was there to find a Vanir military outpost, and that Thor was found drinking with a mysterious creature that had a bottomless barrel of mead that never ran out. While people theorize that individual was some actual Norse character from the almighty Google, Sony Santa Monica hasn't told us who it was, and that's important. Kratos himself, the man that killed an entire pantheon out of a hatred fueled vengeance over the self inflicted deaths of his wife and daughter, um, induced by the Greek gods, who he is reminded of every single day when he sees their ashes on his flesh. Kratos said that he had never known Faye to contain that level of rage, and this rage was described to us by the spirits in the crater that revealed the hidden story to us. Yeah, this rage was described to us by the spirits in the crater that revealed the hidden story to us. Um, I don't know if I want to show the clips here, but it's been a while since I showed a clip. Trying to think where I'm gonna insert the clips. It's really important that I add clips here because I don't want to be a talking head for the entire video. Maybe Here are some of the things we learned in the crater. We were told that Thor was there to find a Vanir military outpost. Show this clip. And Thor was found drinking with a mysterious creature that had a bottomless barrel of mead that never ran out. Show the clip. While people have theorized that that individual was some Norse character from the almighty Google, Santa Monica hasn't told us who it was, and that's important. Kratos himself, the man that killed an entire pantheon out of a hatred-fueled rage, fueled vengeance over the self-inflicted deaths of his wife and daughter, induced by the Greek gods, who he is reminded of every single day when we see their ashes on his flesh. Kratos said that he had never known Faye to contain that level of rage. This rage was described to us by the spirits in the crater that revealed a hidden story to us. Let me show the clip where Kratos says he's never known Faye to have that anger. Based off of that, I'm led to believe that Faye's fight with Thor was not out of vengeance for Thor's killing of her fellow giants. Based off of that, I am led to believe that Faye's fight with Thor was not out of vengeance for Thor's killing of her fellow giants. Instead, I believe the level of rage Faye felt that day was due to the fact Thor killed one of Faye's own kin, and that person could have potentially been Fjorgen. Or a close relative. If it wasn't Fjorgen, that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is that Faye's rage that day was a level Kratos had never seen before. He had never seen her before in that light. That level of rage has only been seen in the Greek games, and Kratos' reasons back then were very personal. I'm just trying to compare Faye to that level of rage. Mimir even tells us in the Vanaheim crater, after the lore side quests are done, perhaps you and Faye had more in common than you thought. Show this clip. Don't read it. Another theory crafting side quest, if you will. I'd like to point out the obvious. Faye and Thor are both redheads, even though Thor's hair is redder than Faye's. While this isn't enough to prove similar lineage, I'd like to present the facts. Thor and Sif equal Magni, Modi, and Thrud. Show their hairs. Show images here. Fjorgen plus Odin equal Thor. Show Thor's hair. Oh, this is entirely. Oh, this is headcanon. Pure headcanon. I think Odin was blonde in his youth due to his blue eyes. Question mark. Head plus image of Odin equals image of Thor. Graphic. So mysterious father plus mysterious mother equals Faye. Fair haired. Or I don't know. Is it called like dirty blonde or something like that? I know this is a stretch, but hey, I'm making a theory video here. I'll take whatever I can get. So it's worth considering. Nacho, remember Corey stated that he wanted to make sure after the God of War 2 Gaia thing that there was always going to be breadcrumbs to prove that was there. Hang on, I didn't even finish. I didn't even finish. This doesn't even. This doesn't even include the. This doesn't even include the orb thing. Back to the God of War music, because I can't stand that. I just told an AI, please. All right, let's see what ChatGPT spits out. Hey, we're making the theory. This came from the Captain Cuba video you commented on. This Laufey game got me hype as heck, dude. Same, bro. Absolutely same. I'm so excited. Sorry, Gio. I'm working on this theory to try to finish it because I really want to make the video, but I'm definitely in theory brain mode right now. So everything's kind of wishy washy. I'm using ChatGPT to help me. I promise that the theory is original. All this is written. And I've been working on this since 2018. I've talked about it a few times with Captain Cubo, but and he really liked it back when he used to do member hangouts. But after the Laufey trailer, I got a lot of fuel to finally finish and put a bow on the theory, which I'm super excited about. But um hey man, AI is a tool. I'm leveraging it to help me get this going. So I'm gonna read this. Okay. So the core theory, Fjorgen's lore marker is not just background mythology, it may be deliberate foreshadowing meant to connect Fjorgen and Faye. The similarities between Fjorgen's funeral rites and Faye's final journey are too specific to ignore. The summit, the bridge, the connection to Thor, earth, trees, giant magic, and a death surrounded by mystery. My theory is that Faye may be directly related to Fjorgen, and that is true. Possibly her daughter, descendant, or close kin. And that Faye's battle with Thor in the Vanaheim crater may have been personal because Thor killed, harmed, or was connected to the death of someone from Faye's own bloodline. And that person was Fjorgen, basically. The bonus stretch theory. If Fjorgen was Faye's mother, then Odin being trapped inside Faye's soul marble at the end of Ragnarok becomes symbolically massive. Atreus may have unknowingly placed Odin's soul inside the marble of the daughter of the woman Odin once loved, betrayed, and possibly destroyed. Which is crazy if that is true. All right. So organize YouTube script and clip map. Okay. Cold open. Quick montage of Faye marking trees, Kratos carrying the ashes. That's a good idea. Thor and Ragnarok, Fjorgen lore marker. I don't like that one. Voiceover. There are a lot of unanswered questions in modern God of War. Who blew the horn? What was Faye's true past? How did she know so much? Why did she fight Thor? And why does one random lore marker from God of War 2018 sound almost exactly like Faye's funeral journey? Exactly. Which is the freaking mountain I've died on since 2019. Today I want to focus on one of the strangest clues in the entire Norse saga, the rights of Fjorgen. Because I don't think this lore marker is random, I think it may be one of the most important breadcrumbs Sony Santa Monica left behind. And if I'm right, it could completely change how we look at Faye, Thor, Odin, and the ending of Ragnarok. On-screen text. Fjorgen, Faye, Thor, Odin, the marble. I'm definitely not doing that. Alright, channel intro, God of War, no. Okay. What's going on, everyone? Okay, no. This is Theorycrafting, this is connecting clues. Okay. Why Theorycraft? Yeah. Definitely add in the clip of Corey Barlog's interview, the Beyond interview back in 2018. One of the reasons God of War Theory Crafting is so fun is because these games are built on setup and payoff. After the Greek saga, especially with the Guy reveal in God of War 2, Corey Barlog has said he wanted future story decisions to feel earned, like the evidence was always there. So when God of War gives us a lore marker that feels oddly specific, I don't think we should just walk past it. And that brings us to Fjorgen. And this is where we show the rights of Fjorgen from the game, right? In God of War 2018, we find a lore marker called Rights of Fjorgen. And I genuinely believe this might be one of the most important lore markers in modern God of War games. That's a stretch, but I think it's important still. Here's what it says. Here we bear witness to the funeral rites of Fjorgen of the Jotnar, goddess of the earth and trees. For her beauty she was seduced, for her love she was betrayed, and for her gift of life, her life was claimed. To the summit and across the bridge she shall be born, or never more the thunder may find her. At first, that sounds like lore about Thor's mother. Because Atreus clearly states in that lore marker at the bottom within his journal, did Thor kill his own mother? What does it mean? But it's literally the only lore marker where he goes, what does this mean? He's kind of like, what? So to me, that's yeah, this is definitely a Corey idea. So that's what got my head spinning back then. Before we connect Fjorgen to Faye, we need to establish what we actually know. Fjorgen was one of Odin's great loves. She was a giant, but not just a giant. She was also described to be the goddess of the earth and trees, and she was Thor's mother. Mimir also tells us that Fjorgen died. That after Fjorgen died, Odin was never quite the same. Yeah, he says that. Odin was absolutely in pain after Fjorgen's death. This matters because it gives Odin an emotional connection to Fjorgen, but also a motive for obsession. What I truly believe is that Fjorgen passing away, it gives, it's almost like when Fjorgen passed away, it was actually someone he loved and cared about, and when Fjorgen dies, it kind of clears Odin of all emotional connection to the world. Now he can just focus on his ultimate goal, which is finding out what happens after you die. What is life after death for the gods? So His last like mortal coil was severed when Fjorgen died. So this matters because it gives Odin an emotional connection to Fjorgen, but also a motive for obsession. Odin is not just a king, he is a man obsessed with knowledge, control, death, prophecy, and the unknown. So if Fjorgen's death left a hole in him, it may have pushed him even further down the path we see in Ragnarok. The mask, the rift, the afterlife, the secrets of the giants. All of it connects back to Odin's fear of not knowing. Wow, that's actually kind of true, though. I don't know if Odin knew how Fjorgen died, but if he didn't, that adds another layer there. Like that scene at the end of Ragnarok where he's talking to Atreus. He's like, I will not stop. I need to know. Well, what if like he needed to know how Fjorgen died also? But anywho, Fjorgen's powers. The earth, the trees. Um so here we have to show the clip. Show lore marker text again, highlighting goddess of the earth and trees. Okay. So the lore marker specifically calls Fjorgen the goddess of the earth and trees. That wording matters because when we look at Faye, what are some of the most important images connecting to her or connected to her? Trees, earth, marked paths, gold handprints, a protective stave built through the woods, a funeral pyre made from the marked trees, and a journey across the realms guided through physical markings in the world itself, on the earth. In God of War 2018, Kratos cuts down the marked trees, and that act breaks the protection stave around the wildwoods. Those trees were marked by Faye. That was her magic, her preparation, her final plan. And in Ragnarok, we see that Faye was not just guessing, she had an almost impossibly detailed understanding of the exact path Kratos and Atreus would take. Not just a vague prophecy, not just a mural, she marked the world itself. Gold markings on rocks, path markers, like every single rock, nook, and cranny that Kratos walk, run, jump, climb, squeeze through, she marked the path. That isn't just, giants had the power to discover, or not discover, but they had the power of foresight. They giants had that gift of foresight, but Faye's gift of foresight was something else if she was able to mark every single path they were supposed to go on. It almost feels extra, like a boosted power for her to be able to do that, for her to be able to mark their path. But she marked the world itself. Gold markings on the route path markers, yeah. You can call that giant magic, and that's fair. But when one character is described as a goddess of earth and trees, and another character's entire legacy is built around trees, earth markings, and protection magic, I think that connection is worth paying attention to. Faye is a godling. Okay, yeah, so here's where I play the clip of Betsy calling Faye a godling. And then we got a massive lore nugget in the God of War Laufey trailer. Faye is called a godling. Not once, twice. And I think this is being slept on. That's true. Because if Faye is not only a giant, but also divine in some way, then her connection to Fjorgen becomes even more interesting. Fjorgen was a giant and a goddess. Faye was a giant and apparently a godling now. That does not automatically prove they are related, but it does mean the comparison is not random. The funeral parallel. Return to the lore marker. Highlight the final sentence. Now let's go back to the most suspicious part of the lore marker. To the summit and across the bridge she shall be born, where nevermore the thunder may find her. This is the part I cannot ignore. Because what do we know? What do we do in God of War 2018? We carry Faye's ashes across a bridge to the summit, to the highest peak in all the realms. And by the way, we carry Faye's ashes. That explains the born part, because born means to be transplaced or transported from one place to another. Across the bridge to the summit, to the highest peak in all the realms. And then we have the clip here, Kratos and Atreus crossing Tyr's bridge, the realm travel room, Jotunheim summit, scattering Faye's ashes. Voiceover. The word born means carried or transported, and this is exactly what Kratos and Atreus do. They carry Faye's ashes to the summit, across a bridge, to a place where Thor cannot find her. That is almost too specific to be coincidence. To be fair, also, we now have confirmation that Faye fought Thor. So, and in that fight, she won. She beat Thor, but when she, who knows what the end of that conversation was like? Technically, after that fight, who knows what happened? Who knows how Faye even died? Also, right? We still don't know the answer to that question. We don't know how she died. But could we have taken Faye to the summit across the bridge so that Thor couldn't find her? Because maybe Thor was hunting her down? Who knows? But on-screen text, Fjorgen. Born to the summit, across the bridge, away from thunder. Faye. Ashes carried to the highest peak, across the bridge, and away from Thor. Who she fought, by the way. Breaking down the lore marker. Lore marker split into 3 sections. Now, the earlier part of the marker is harder to decode. For her beauty, she was seduced. This could refer to Odin seducing Fjorgen. We don't know enough to say for sure. For her love, she was betrayed. This feels very Odin coded. Even when Odin seems genuine, he always finds a way to use people, and he is resourcefully subversive. Freya is the clearest example of that. And then, for her gift of life, her life was claimed. This is the biggest mystery. The obvious interpretation is childbirth. Fjorgen gives life to Thor, and her life is claimed in the process. If that's true, it would explain a lot about Thor. Thor looking broken, Odin insulting Thor, Thor drinking. That's actually a pretty good idea for a clip there. Voiceover. Imagine Thor growing up under Odin, knowing or being told that his birth caused his mother's death. Imagine Odin, grieving and bitter, blaming the child for the loss of the woman he loved. Then imagine Odin pointing that guilt, rage, and self-hatred toward the giants. That could help explain why Thor became Odin's weapon. Not just because he was powerful, but because he was emotionally broken from the beginning. ChatGPT definitely cooked on that one. It's my theory, though. I basically wrote that, but I'm a very wordy person when I write. Transition to Vanaheim Crater. Vanaheim Crater footage. And this is where the Vanaheim Crater becomes important, not extremely important. Because we still don't know exactly why Faye fought Thor. We know Thor was in the crater. We know he was there around the time he was looking for a Vanir military outpost. And we know he was drinking with a mysterious creature that had a bottomless barrel of mead. But we don't know the full reason Faye showed up. And we don't know why the fight was so personal. Faye's rage. Spirits describing Faye and Thor's battle, crater aftermath. The game makes a point to tell us that Faye's rage during that fight was unlike anything Kratos had ever known from her. That is a huge statement, because this is Kratos we're talking about. This is a man whose entire Greek saga, this is a man who, throughout the entirety of the Greek saga, and the entire how's ChatGPT saying it? This is a man whose entire Greek saga was built on rage, vengeance, grief, and personal loss. But no, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say this is Kratos we're talking about. This is the Kratos who killed an entire pantheon because he was tricked and manipulated not only into killing his wife, but killing his own daughter. And he is reminded of that despicable act every single day when he wakes up or he looks at a body of water and sees his reflection. So when Kratos says he never knew Faye to have that level of anger, that should make us ask, what could have pushed Faye that far? And yeah, we're going to show Kratos' line about Faye's rage, which is at the end of the Vanaheim crater. My theory is that Faye's fight with Thor was not only about Thor killing giants in general. I think it was more personal than that. I think Thor may have killed, harmed, or been directly tied to the... No. I think Thor killed someone very close to Faye. And by close, I mean a family member. And that person may have been Fjorgen all along. And if my theory is to be believed to be true, that person may have been Fjorgen herself. All right, main theory. Faye and Fjorgen are connected. So here's the main theory. Fjorgen and Faye are connected by blood. Fjorgen may be Faye's mother, ancestor, or close relative. That would explain why the lore marker about Fjorgen's funeral mirrors... That would explain why the lore marker about Fjorgen's funeral mirrors Faye's final journey so closely. It would explain why both women are tied to giant magic, divinity, earth, trees, and Thor. It would also give Faye a much more personal reason to hate and fight Thor. If Thor killed Fjorgen, or if Thor's birth caused Fjorgen's death, or if Odin twisted the truth and used Thor as a weapon against Fjorgen's people, and, Fjorgen's people were the giants, then Faye's rage in the crater becomes more than righteous anger. It becomes family. It becomes grief. Because Faye even says the culmination of love is grief. It becomes the same kind of personal rage that once consumed Kratos. Mimir, clip of Mimir saying, "Perhaps you and Faye had more in common than you thought." Ooh, that's a nice, yeah, that's a nice part to put the clip in. Do not read this line. Let Mimir say it. That's what I wrote in my script. That line definitely, that line hits very differently if Faye's rage came from personal loss. And then the red hair side note. Now this next part is not proof. This is just a smaller visual clue that may or may not matter. Faye and Thor are both red haired, or at least fair haired with reddish tones. Thor's children also carry similar traits, and this is where I want to put the pictures of Sif plus Thor. His Thor's hair is like way redder than Sif's. And then if you were to look at Thor's children, Magni, Modi, and Thrud, you can tell. I think Magni was blonde. Modi had Thor's hair. And then Thrud had fair hair with like a streak of Thor's red hair. But Faye was fair haired. Not proof. But when we're already okay, could this be nothing? Absolutely. But when we're already looking at possible shared lineage, divine giant blood, and the fact that Fjorgen is Thor's mother, the visual similarity is worth keeping in the back of our minds. It's not proof, just another breadcrumb. Not proof, just suspicious. So, summarize the evidence before bonus theory. So, I can't really do that. A clip, a fast montage of each evidence point. So let's summarize everything so far. 1, Fjorgen was a giant and a goddess of earth and trees. 2, Faye was a giant and is called a godling in the Laufey trailer. 3, Faye's magic is heavily tied to trees, earth, protection staves, and physical markings across the land. 4, Fjorgen's funeral marker says she was carried to the summit, across the bridge where thunder could never find her. 5, Faye's ashes are literally carried across the bridge to the highest peak away from Thor. 6, Faye's battle with Thor in the Vanaheim crater involved a level of rage Kratos had never seen from her. And 7, Mimir directly compares Faye and Kratos after that reveal. So my conclusion is the rites of Fjorgen lore marker may be foreshadowing Faye's deeper origin. Faye may be connected to Fjorgen by blood, and her fight with Thor may have been personal because Thor was tied to the death, betrayal, and destruction of Faye's family. Bonus stretch theory, Odin and Faye's marble. Clip of Atreus placing Odin's soul into the marble, Angerboda marbles. Captain Kiba reference, if using. Now, if you made it this far, I've got a bonus theory for you. And I'll be honest, this one's a stretch. But at the end of God of War Ragnarok, Odin's soul is placed inside a soul marble. And the marble used is Faye's. It doesn't appear to be Faye's, it is Faye's. And that alone is already strange. But if Faye is connected to Fjorgen, this does become extremely poetic. Because Odin, the man who loved Fjorgen, possibly betrayed her, and may have caused the pain that shaped Thor and Faye's entire bloodline, ends up trapped inside Faye's marble. Not just Faye's marble, but that of Laufey the Just. If Fjorgen was Faye's mother, then Atreus may have unknowingly placed Odin inside the marble of his own daughter. Or at least inside the marble of someone tied directly to the woman Odin lost. That would be insane. Not confirmed, not something I can prove, but from a storytelling perspective, this is exactly the kind of poetic punishment God of War loves. Final conclusion and outro. So here's where I land. I don't think the Rights of Fjorgen lore marker is just random background lore. I think it is one of the earliest breadcrumbs pointing towards Faye's true importance. Fjorgen and Faye are both giant women connected to divinity, earth, trees, death, motherhood, Thor, and a funeral journey to a summit across a bridge. That is too specific for me to ignore. My theory is that Faye may be directly related to Fjorgen, and that her fight with Thor in the Vanaheim crater was not simply about justice for the giants. It was personal. Thor may have killed someone from Faye's family. He may have been connected to Fjorgen's death, or he may have represented the entire cycle of Odin's abuse, grief, and manipulation that started with Fjorgen and ended with Ragnarok. And if that is true, then Faye was not just Kratos' wife or Atreus' mother. She may have been the missing link between Odin's greatest loss, Thor's broken identity, and the prophecy that finally brought Asgard down. Now, obviously, this is just a theory. There are parts of it that are strong, and there are parts of it that are definitely a stretch, but that's what makes. And this is all. This is a ChatGPT-ified version of my outro, but it's basically that. That's my new catchphrase. Do not be sorry, be better. Okay. This isn't bad. It'll definitely help me finish this. That's for sure. Now, how much am I going to use of the ChatGPT stuff? Not much. I still want my theory to be like fully authentic. But again, I'm still of the belief that ChatGPT is it's a tool and we're supposed to leverage it. And I like using it to organize my thoughts, so there's nothing wrong about that. Now, the issue here is when you copy and paste everything and then try to regurgitate it. That's a different story. But all this was my script. So we got to finish it. And Gio, if you're still there, thanks for stopping by, bro. I'm excited as well. I need to go make a pit stop at the store to grab some fuel to finish this video. But I'm gonna come back and continue streaming while I make the video itself. And hopefully I can get a draft done before tomorrow. I really want to release it on Saturday. But if anyone's still watching, remember, do not be sorry. Be better.